courage and great faith to look upon all your creation, your thoughts, your feelings, your manifestation with love, and with the innocence of a child. For example, to plant a garden and have all things wither and die, and yet to smile and say, I planted this garden, I and I alone have done this. Well, I will get a little hungry here, so I might as well go to the store. Why is this important? Because a long time ago the soul began to create the perception that it was something other than it was created to be. And the voice for ego emerged within the garden of consciousness. As that soul, that deepest aspect of the mind that you've all known, began to identify with a voice that was other than the voice for God. That voice was led you to believe that your creations determine your worthiness. Do you know that feeling? Therefore, if what you create is not up to snuff, it means that you, in the core of your beingness, are some kind of failure. But I say unto you, in reality, failure is not even remotely possible. Why? If you plant a garden and the seed does not turn into a beautiful flower, but withers and dies, that experience is a creation, and you have done it. And because all the events in space and time, everything you experience, are perfectly neutral, there is in reality never failure. The only failure seems to occur within your own consciousness when you believe that it is not acceptable to receive and own and embrace your creation with love and with innocence. Instead, you can choose to look upon it, to experience it, and to recognize your perfect safety in doing so. For it is from there that you can decide whether to continue in that form of creation or whether to think differently and to approach things differently. That is where the catch is. That part of the mind began to teach you a long, long time ago what to accept as acceptable creations and what to not accept, what to take responsibility for and what to deny responsibility for, and that conflict creates the illusion of separation. When taken to its extreme, one discovers your hospitals full of those in deep depression, paranoia, and the feeling within the being, within the human mind, of feeling alienated and alone. Helplessness, hopelessness, despair, anger, and hatred are all symbols of a fundamental delusion that has occurred within the depth of the mind. It has occurred because there has been a long history of having cultivated the skill of listening to the wrong voice. The wrong voice is the voice of the ego. It has taught you to judge, to pick, to select what you will be responsible for. The more you move into that consciousness, the harder it seems to ever hope for a chance of transcending the sense of separation, conflict, and lack of peace. For how many of you have not known the feeling of resting your head upon your pillow at night and not being able to sleep because it's just not going the way you expected? The reason you cannot sleep is because you are in judgment of your creation. But it is possible to cultivate just the opposite, in which you learn to look with perfect innocence upon all things that arise in the field of your experience. It is possible to look with innocence and wonder at every feeling from the place of curiosity, as you would look upon a cloud that passes through the sky. Look at it, marvel at it, its shape, its color, and embrace it, knowing that it does not affect the purity of the sky through which it temporarily floats. Each of your creations is exactly like this. It arises in the field of time and space. You experience it, and then it fades away. Every hurt that you ever known is like a cloud that began to pass into the field of your awareness because you perceived things in a certain way. If that hurt is still lodged within you, it is because you latched onto it. You followed the voice of the ego, which caused you to believe that you are identified with that feeling, with that perception. And because you mistakenly thought that was you, you assumed that if you let go of it, you might disappear, you might die. The human mind is that field within creation, within consciousness, that has learned to become so identified with perceptions, experience, and feelings that are not necessarily comfortable, that it believes that if it lets go of them, it will die. From our perspective, as we look upon the energy fields of those you still identified within this dimension, it looks as though you are gripping, causing energy to condense. Your knuckles are white, trying to hold on to limitations and guilt, to unworthiness and doubt. You seek innocence and peace. You seek abundance, prosperity, and joy. But often when you touch these things, it frightens you. Why? Because the truth of the kingdom requires openness, trust, expansiveness, and spaciousness. It involves allowing, trusting, witnessing, and letting things come and go. It involves learning to cultivate a deep enjoyment of whatever arises, seeing that all things are just modifications of consciousness itself, and then letting them go when it is time to do so. Rest assured, there is no one, not a single soul, who has ever discovered something that was birthed in time that did not also end in time. How much of your suffering comes because you are clinging to a lifeless past and insisting that you carry it with you still? You are doing that because in the past you became identified with the clouds that were passing by and claimed that as your own identity. Therefore, if you release it, it will mean that you must change, you must go on. Creation itself that flows from the mind of God is ongoing forever. You will never cease to be. You will go on forever and ever and forever and forever and forever. You will go on forever exactly as you are now. Or you can allow the mind of God to flow through you, carrying you to an ever greater expansiveness and deepening your awareness of the infinite loveliness of the power of the mind of God. Mastery arises from innocence. In these lessons we will create a system or a pathway upon which you can walk to deliberately cultivate the quality of awareness and consciousness necessary to stabilize that awareness, so that you can bring it to each and every moment of your experience. Imagine then being able to experience whatever arises without losing the sense of spaciousness, innocence, and the ease that you now experience in fleeting moments. For instance, know you the experience when things are going well, you are singing a happy tune, and life seems to be moving ahead? Imagine that same quality of trust, faith, and certainty of purpose, even when the billions are crumbling around you and the bank account has gone dry. Imagine being able to look at these events with the same sense of innocence and wonder with which you would look into the eyes of your beloved. For such a quality of awareness is perfect mastery. Within it are discovered perfect peace, perfect freedom, perfect joy, and uninterrupted communion with all of creation. And if you would well receive it, that quality of feeling intimately one with all other creation is what you have been seeking as a soul since first the identification with the creation called ego began. For that creation created conflict and separation. Everything you have ever attempted to do since has been an attempt to overcome separation and to gain back what you felt you had lost. It is just that the ways you have sought to do it do not work. The world of conflict, fear, guilt, and unworthiness, and the world of the kingdom lie side by side within your own mind. The eye of the needle that one must pass through is the recultivation of the innocence of a child. It is for this reason that I often taught, become again as a little child to enter the kingdom. The cultivation of the way of the heart is that pathway whereby you deliberately and consciously choose to become again as an innocent child, just as you were in the beginning before you were ever created, and then incarnated into this dimension of experience that seems to be so permeated by a sense of conflict and separation.